Hello, and welcome back to another Eduonics tutorial. In this section, we're going over effects and techniques in Photoshop. And in this video, we'll be going over how to make an image pop or stand out from the rest. You can't always control what types of images are most attractive to people. For the most part, it's a completely subjective thing that will differ from person to person. It also depends on the images that your image is being compared to, whether your image would necessarily stand out among them. But since both of those things are basically out of our control, let's forget about them for a minute and focus on what draws attention. There are a few very simple things that draw attention to an image. Those are color, contrast, and depth. You want your colors to be vivid and saturated. You also want your shadows to be extra dark and your highlights to be extra bright. I find that a good contrast sort of creates a sense of high quality. And finally, you don't want your image to be flat. You want people to feel like they could live inside your image. And for that, you need depth. The photo I have here is lacking all of those things. There's not much color, and what color I do have is pretty muted. And since the weather is overcast, there's not much contrast to be found between the highlights and the shadows. And finally, the photo looks like it was taken from a long distance, and there's not much depth to be found at all between the foreground and the background. Let's see what I can do to fix all those things and really make this image pop. The first thing I'll do is go down to the bottom of the Layers panel and click the New Adjustment Layer button. Then I'll go up and select Vibrance. Then I'll go up some more and I'll bring my vibrance all the way up to 100. Okay, that's giving me a little more color on the right of my image, but it's not really kicking it up to the next level for me. I'll go immediately down to Saturation and start bringing that up as well. There we go. The colors are really starting to pop now, and it's giving me some focus near the middle right of my image. I'll leave this saturation at around 15. This seems to be a good spot for now. With my vibrance layer, I notice I'm getting a bit more out of the red on this boat, but I'm especially getting a lot more out of these yellows in the containers and the shipyard floor. I think I'm going to use yellow as part of the focus of my image. So I'll bring up the yellows even more. Now I'll go down to the bottom of the Layers panel and click the New Adjustment Layer button. Then I'll go up and select Hue Saturation. Again, I don't want to saturate this whole image. I only want to focus on the yellows. So I'll go up in this button below my preset option where it says Master. Now this drop-down lets me isolate any given color. So I'm going to go down and select, you guessed it, yellows. So right now, the saturation should only be affecting the yellows. So I'm going to go ahead and increase the saturation to around 60. This is really bringing out the yellows now, almost giving the image sort of a gold feel. But it's probably a little too much. It doesn't really look real anymore. So I'll go over to the Layers panel, and with my Hue Saturation layer selected, I'll just go up and change the blend mode from normal to soft light. This not only blended the layer better, it also increased my contrast, which is something I wanted in the first place. Now I just want to do a bit of shadow and highlight adjustment. So I'll go down to the bottom of the Layers panel again and click the New Adjustment Layer button. Then I'll go up and select Curves. With the increase in contrast, I lost some detail on my darker colors. So the first thing I'll do with Curves is go up to the histogram and drag the bottom left point of my diagonal line upwards a bit, about halfway up the first quarter of the histogram. Just enough to bring some more detail back from those shadows. That looks pretty good. Now I'll go up about 1/3 of the way up the diagonal line. Click to make a new point, and this time I'll drag that down and to the right a bit. This will bring my midtones down just a bit. Finally, I'll go up near the top third of the diagonal line and click to make a new point. Then I'll drag this one up and to the left a bit. This will brighten up my highlights more and really make the sky pop. Okay, now this image is just soaking with color and contrast. It's really getting some depth as well. The only problem is that everything seems to be popping. The idea of drawing attention often involves making one part of your image stick out, and this is your subject and your overall focus. I'm going to put all my adjustment layers together and use a gradient to mask them out a bit. So first, I'll go down to the bottom of the Layers panel, and this time I'll click the New Group button. This is located just to the left of the New Layer button. Now, to put my adjustment layers into the group, I'll just select the one on top, hold Shift, and then select the one on the bottom. Now that my layers are selected, I'll click and drag them up into my new group. This hasn't done anything yet. It's just given me the opportunity to use one layer mask for all my adjustment layers. So I'll go up and select my group, then I'll go down to the bottom of the Layers panel and click the New Layer Mask button. Now to make the gradient, I'll go over to my Tools panel and select my gradient tool. I'll make sure that my gradient is going from black to white. And I'll just click at the bottom of this red container near the middle, and then I'll drag up into the sky. And I'll release my mouse somewhere near the clouds. There we go. Now my image has saturated colors, high contrast, and depth. I'll go ahead and hide my group to see my original image. There's before, and there's after. Very nice. I brought out some of the colors with the vibrance layer, emphasized the yellows with the hue saturation layer, blended with some extra contrast with a soft light blend mode, adjusted the shadows and highlights with curves, and finally, I brought some focus with a group layer mask. That will do it for making images pop. I'll go over another effect and technique in the next video.